All right, we ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, here we are with the review of the second game of the season, the Western Carolina game. What are they? The
Catamounts.
Catamounts. What's that? Is that a mounted cat? Is that
some type of
like if you
mountain
large
lion,
animal?
A mountain
sounds
lion
like if you
a
a kitten and had a baby saber tooth?
catamaran.
Sounds like if you killed a cat and you stuffed it and put it on the wall, you mounted that cat.
That's about right.
Well, we did it to
That's
them
what we
because they were pathetically bad, as they should have been, as sort of your expectation or your hope would be, and that's how it turned out to be. A medium-sized or large wild cat, especially a cougar. Oh, they were cougars. So let's introduce ourselves. This is the Two Homers and a Realist podcast. One of our homers is
Connor.
The other is Steve, and then the so-called realist is
Lucas.
And we're not joined by several people that may be joining us in the future. One of them being Jay, because I don't know, he's a little bitch or something.
Send us some stats, Jay. We'll be looking forward to it.
Send us some obscure stats.
Yeah, I do want a breakdown of every snap the offensive line got on top of on top of a lot more stuff.
Watching Stanford run all over USC. Following just 30 minutes ago, Jacksonville State beat Florida State. Awesome, a wonderful evening, a wonderful capper for what started with an upset of Oregon beating Ohio State today, which was fantastic.
Good day of football. Not a lot of the wins that we won.
Good day. I'll have to admit that you were right. Probably if they had the foresight, they should have taken the knee. That is Toledo. And tried to kick the field goal to win it against Notre Dame. The problem with that is that's asking a lot of a kid to know that he should actually take that knee, because if he's wrong and he takes that knee, that's about the most embarrassing, worst thing he could do.
It definitely wasn't something that he was coached on.
Exactly.
It's definitely not a moment that they said in practice.
When we are down by 2,
situation,
and there's a minute and a half left,
you don't get coached on,
and you're running free to the end zone. But if all we need is a field goal, go ahead and take a knee so we can.
Well, Samaje Perine was not trained for that either.
Well, he's got a Power 5 mind.
It's
a Power 5 mind right there.
That was a totally different situation because we were up.
Yes, I understand.
That was different. So let's start us off. Wonderful win against the Catamounts. Sooners 76. Catamounts, Big O'Neill, Big O0. Told you we'd get the shutout. Are we optimistic or pessimistic? Lucas, are you optimistic or pessimistic? How do you feel compared to before the game?
Before the game, my score was 59-10, I think was my prediction. So I'm happy that we did not give up any points. Even with the third string guys in there, I mean, they had a lot of third down stops.
They had one really good opportunity, and they got loose of us, and the guy starts to do a little juking stutter move, and an OU guy catches him from behind, forces the fumble. Awesome forced fumble.
Yes.
Fantastic.
That was inside about the 30-yard line or so.
And the other OU player didn't try to scoop and score, fell on the ball to make sure we got the ball. And that was that as much as anything was something that was very satisfying to me, because I'm so tired of seeing guys try for too much. They try to scoop and score, and the other team gets the ball back.
Do you think they would have pulled a Bill Callahan and just kicked a field goal if say it was 4th and 7?
Yes, I think they would have. I think they totally would have Callahaned and kicked the field goal to save the shutout.
Just not be scoreless.
Yep,
wow.
Absolutely.
That's what I would have done. Absolutely.
I wouldn't. That's the weakest sauce ever.
I'm not saying I would.
No,
I'm just saying they would.
Right.
I think they would have.
He would. I would not.
I'm down by that many points. You bet your ass I'm going to take what I can get on the scoreboard.
No chance for me.
For my kids, I might do that. If I'm the coach, I might think I want us to not have a donut on the season. I could see that.
If they're my kids, I'm saying let's not be a bunch of
So
pussies.
Stanford scored, so they're up 21-7. This is awesome.
Let's go for it.
I love it.
Well, I was wondering when the last time OU shut out a team was. Any ideas? Any guesses?
Last year against Missouri State, 55-0.
There you go. And we talked about it earlier, but when was the last time we scored this many points in a game?
North Texas.
2007, is that correct?
I think that was right. 2007.
With the other game being the 77-0 Aggies game.
So it was 79-0
in the
against North Texas, and then 77-0 against. Those are just phenomenal stories. That's the most phenomenal ever against Texas A&M, because Texas A&M is a big step up from the other two schools.
And it was 77-0 with 3.5 minutes to go in the third
Exactly.
quarter. And then we
Exactly.
literally started downing the ball
Exactly.
to not embarrass them anymore.
This
and
is
then
phenomenal.
Mike Lubica went off on us for no reason whatsoever because he doesn't understand football.
He's a fiction writer.
Yes.
So it was interesting to me, a little digression here real quickly, the whole fiction writer, that when Stoop said that, I don't know if you've noticed this, that's in Switzer's book several times. Switzer, in 1989, when he writes Bootlegger's Boy, he talks about the fiction writers.
Yeah.
That's his line.
No,
that's not Stoop's line. That's amazing.
I'm about halfway
that
through
is
that book
so
right
amazing.
now. It is. It's great.
So I'm, compared to how I felt coming into the game, before the game, I would say I'm more optimistic. I'm much more optimistic. This was a very good game. I thought that we executed really well, did everything you'd hope to do. Obviously, it's not a game that you can take a whole lot away from just because of the quality of the opponent, but it was a very, very well played game from top to bottom all the way through. So I'm much more optimistic. I would say I'm not as optimistic as I was before the Tulane game, but I'm getting close to it. And Tulane having a big, big victory today, again, against a very lesser opponent in Morgan State, but still a huge win for them.
For Tulane,
62-14, I think it was.
I think they precipice 70 as well, actually.
That is a good sign that Tulane is indeed a very talented team. 69-20, okay. So they are, I guess I stopped watching.
So you won't be executing any of your players?
I won't be executing, not like Brian Kelly. I won't be executing any players. So Connor, pessimistic, optimistic? How do you feel?
No, I feel pretty similar. So going throughout this week, having to hear the criticisms and having my own criticisms and having to work through those thoughts, and Jay's amazing breakdown of all of our flaws as well,
including like how many players we played.
Yeah.
And then knowing when we played them,
right,
and how we played them,
right,
in the Tulane game. That was
no,
pretty disturbing.
I think it's I'm kind of trying to even the keel a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Next week will be a decent measuring stick. I think that'll be fun to actually. Mm-hmm. I think we'll show some stuff that we might not have shown over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. And however, it's a much lesser Nebraska team as well. So. I fully expect, and we can get into it later, but I fully expect us to be able to go out and showcase exactly what we did today. I know that from the realist or pessimist side, there'll be some criticisms of, quarterback play and stuff like that. Everything I saw today was fixable, mechanic-wise. I don't think, from an execution perspective, I think we were there. I think the play calling was much, much better and clean.
Play calling, yeah.
Wasn't a lot of ambiguity around what we were trying to do.
Obviously, it's easy to do things when you're playing a lesser opponent, not as athletic on either side of the ball, but they did seem to have just more poise, more confidence, more focus.
Absolutely.
It would have been easy to lose your focus, and they didn't. I would say, so let's jump in. That really gives us our next, we covered the next one, which was overall impression of the game and team, I think, unless somebody has something else to add there. But for me, looking at players and positions, I would say that Spencer Rattler looked a lot better than he did in the Tulane game. I think that he still isn't in a midseason form. He's throwing behind a few receivers. He is not exactly in step with where you want him to be in terms of his progression, but much, much better than what we saw against Tulane. So I was pretty pleased about that. It's good to see Caleb Williams get a lot of quality snaps. It's good to see us have some confidence and get him in for the entire second half, which is not typically what we'd seen over, and definitely not under Bob Stoops, and really not even under Lincoln Riley for a long time. No. Think how long we went without seeing Kyler Murray came into a game. Mm-hmm. And I guess that speaks to, one, who we're playing today, but also the quality of our defense, and that we know we can hold a lead and hold things together. So what about you guys? Players or positions that were surprising, encouraging, or disappointing?
Lucas,
I thought Eric Gray looked better today. It seemed like he had better run lanes for one, because obviously it's a lesser opponent. But he did
offensive line.
He did look really good when he broke into the second tier, and
good
he
moves.
has a little stutter step that will juke out the safeties and the corners that are coming to help after he makes it past the line and the front seven. And then the backup running backs.
Yes.
I mean, Knowles looked fantastic.
Knowles looked fast and strong.
Hudson looks like he could be fun to watch. I don't know how much playing time he'll get outside of these type of games, but I think, at any time the main two running backs get gassed, you can put Knowles in there for a change of pace, and he's going to pick up yards.
I hope they do that. That's always been something that I think has been a little bit of a disappointment with Riley. He seems to get deeper into the season and gets afraid to go deeper into his bench, especially at running back. And,
especially with younger guys.
And he won't trust them. He worries about fumbles. He worries about something. Maybe they don't know the blocking schemes. That's not something I pay as much of any attention to, so I could see that there's something he knows that I don't know there. But I would like to see them play fresh guys, fresh legs. There's something to be said about a guy like Knowles or Hudson coming in with fresh legs deep into a game where you've been really asking a lot of your leading running backs. I thought that Brooks, picking up on the running back theme, I thought that Brooks just continues to look very impressive. His stride, his second gear is really good.
His ability to maintain a balance after contact is unbelievable.
It's
after
really
that,
good.
after that first level of contact, seeing him in the second level get away. I mean, I can't even count the number of times we've seen him take contact at the line and then take off in a diagonal direction
and keep going
and get 10 to 15 more. And even that speaks volumes. I'm with Lucas here. Eric Gray looked.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, God, if you can get Eric Gray in space, I'm terrified if I'm a defense. That guy is fast. He's honestly, in my opinion, he's more of a peripheral, self-aware runner than Brooks is. Brooks is more, I'm going to get to the secondary and I'm going to go downhill at that point. Gray's trying to make a move, and it's explosive. So I think that balance, I'm hoping they maintain that balance going forward, because I think it's actually and that's what we thought last week. It's what we wanted to see last week that we didn't see. I think it's a great 1-2 punch with with your running back position. You bring Gray in for the first drive completely. You run him. You bring Brooks in for a completely different change of pace for the second, but you get the same type of result. So I really do hope we continue to see that production from that position, especially.
More positions to add, or
I actually like the fact that we ran the ball the same. We ran 38 rushes. We had 38 passing attempts. Very balanced.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had 70
yardage
more yards in
balanced
yardage in compared passing to rushing, but obviously those are bigger plays. So we had 9.1 yards per pass, 7.3 yards per rush, but 38 attempts on each one.
Well, another thing that is really, I think, pleasing, that's hard to pick up initially unless you really look for it, is the fact that we're not getting it in giant chunks of a few big plays, which I love to see a big play. I love to see us go vertical on passing routes, but we're not doing that. You're not seeing these deep post patterns and 60-yard catches. We did have two. We had a 58-yard play, a 59-yard play, and I think a 56 or so. I guess the field goal was 56. But so we had several. Caleb Williams' run was 59, I think, and then was it Gray's run was 58 or something?
Yeah.
And so two long runs, but not breakaway. So we're doing this.
18 was his long.
Oh, 18 was his long. So who was
57-yard?
Oh, the pass to the little pass out of the flat.
Yeah.
And that was a tremendous run. But my point is, we're actually progressing down the field and doing this in a way that it's not just a sensational player or a sensational play that's getting us these big yardage. We're actually able to put it together in a drive of yardage in chunks, but not in one giant chunk. I think that's a pretty good sign.
We look
Looks
really
very
efficient. And I think that's probably, it's going to be a little bit different for us. I mean, I think you kind of go back a little bit to that 2019 OU team with Jalen Hurts, and I'm not saying that they're at all the same type of team, but you're looking for efficient types of, there we go, preview for OU Nebraska right here. But I think you're looking for a little bit more of that efficient type of production for this offense. At least today, like you said, like we were I love it. I love taking what the defense gives us. I think Spencer needs to learn to do that more.
Absolutely.
You don't need to be, and I think that may be why he maybe misses those early reads. And Lucas probably chime in on that a little bit more because he looks at that. But I think he looks for the home run ball a lot, and I think instead of seeing that open flat route or maybe the over the middle route that's always, or not always, but that's there some of the time that he doesn't initially hit because he's looking over the top and looking over the secondary. Mm-hmm. I think he might miss that more times than not. But
he had one play today where he tried to hit Mims, who was about the 1 yard line, and he was covered. It hit him in the hands. Mims should have caught it and would have been a touchdown because he would have fallen or fought him off for being in the end zone. Gray was open right between the two of them, very wide open. Yeah. So it's still the kind of thing that, and that's a forgivable thing, but I would like for him to be able to instinctively find the most open receiver and not look for the one who happens to be maybe his primary read, or especially if it's the one where he wants to go, obviously, which is the end zone.
Or just 8 yards further down the field. There was one play when they were going towards the north, and he threw a ball that was probably, the receiver was running to the sideline, maybe 12 to 15 yards, and there was an underneath receiver coming on a drag that didn't have anybody within probably 8 yards of either side of it.
Stogner?
No. It was on the east sideline. I can't remember who it went to. And he could have thrown it to the underneath receiver, and the receiver could have caught it and probably ran anywhere he wanted to,
right? And
probably gained 30 yards, but he threw like
was that a wheel route coming
12
out of the
or 15
backfield?
yard. No, it was a drag route coming from the left to the right.
Okay.
And then even the throw to Gray on the touchdown was the second touchdown of the game where Gray was completely uncovered.
Yes.
On kind of a wheel route.
It was late. It was late.
He definitely didn't diagnose it very fast, but that was probably his second read. He was looking to the right. And even the throw on that, Gray had to adjust and kind of spin around to catch it,
right,
even though there was nobody around him. And it could have been a situation where he tripped up because he had to spin so far around.
Right, and would have been stopped.
And it was kind of reminding me of that pass he threw to Stogner last week that got intercepted because he didn't throw it to the inside of Stogner. And then Riley came out and said that Stogner should have been going in a different. He should have been going straighter and not cutting across as much on that route.
We just showed a Texas fumble. Texas losing to Arkansas today. They're so pathetic. So yeah, that's a good point. That reminded me of another one where he threw it. I don't think Willis, but maybe it was Willis. The receiver. It was a long pass. He found the open receiver. It's about 25 yards downfield, going to the north, and the receiver jumped in the air to snag it out of the air. Did a great job catching the ball. And as we looked at it on replay, it wasn't as bad as it looked initially. In the live view, just looking down at the field, but it still gave me concern. Like, you don't want your pass to be a yard and a half high. You don't want to leave your receiver out like exposed.
To take a big hit.
Because it against a better opponent, he's going to get lit up.
I mean, Stogner lost most of the season last year against Kansas
from getting popped in the
thrown over the middle and getting nailed in the thigh.
And that's what I think. Because that's what you see, flashes of just greatness. So to flip it 180, you see that back shoulder pass that's perfectly timed to Mims in that front corner touchdown late in the second quarter.
Really good.
And it's just like, man, that I know you're that good. I know that you know your plays. I know you know your reads. And, that's a given. That's probably a given. That's probably a called play from the get-go, from the snap. But we know Spencer can make his reads. He knows how to execute when he should. So,
and look off of it to open that up.
And I think he can. And Christian, who hopefully will be joining the podcast at some point, made a good point tonight. It's like, we want to give all this criticism, but I still have a small anchor in that Florida game last year where the decision making was relatively good the whole game, and the passes were on point most of the game.
Well, we were playing their junior varsity team according to their coach.
Right,
But, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Dan. But the reads were there, so we know he's capable of that. I'm hoping that these first few games just get him into that rhythm where it's like, all right, he's feeling it, and then going into Kansas State or West Virginia and Kansas State into conference play, and especially into Texas in a few weeks, but we know he's capable of it. I think it's
so too.
Yeah. I think
one other player. We kind of jumped into quarterback too, and that's good. But before we finish that off, Hazelwood played really good. I felt like tonight.
He had one drop.
He had one drop.
Yeah.
He did have that really good move in for the touchdown, that slicing move. It was a great pass, and he just outmanned the guy. He outmanned the guy on another touchdown reception, if I remember right.
Yeah, he had a quiet 19 yards, which was but two touchdowns.
But two touchdowns,
and just grabbed it with his hands.
And grabbed it with his
hands.
hands.
Spun to the right.
And got into the end zone.
And just looks, it looks strong and looked natural.
Yeah.
It looks strong and looked natural. And that's one criticism I do have of Stogner, is we saw it again tonight. He taking it in the chest way too often.
Yeah, he does.
Taking it in the chest. Get your hands out, man. Get your hands out.
He's mobile enough. He should get his hands out there.
He's athletic enough.
So jumping back into quarterback play, and the question always is, will Rattler be a Heisman finalist? I'd say he's back in the driver's seat to be a finalist. It's up to him to do his best and have a great season. I think his destiny is in his own hands to be a finalist.
You had a bunch of people really helping out this week for sure.
So what were his stats? What was his
Rattler goes 20 for 26 for 243, averaging about 9.3 yards per
for just
attempt.
1 half.
For at 1 half, 5 touchdowns in 1 half with a QBR of 94.2.
That's strong.
So again, with the 1 half in consideration, man, I can't imagine what he would have done with one more quarter. It would have been.
He had 4 rushes for 29 yards as well, and one was a 22-yarder, which that one. He just pulled it down because he realized that there was nobody in the middle of the field, and he took off running.
That is one thing I will say about him is when he knows he can run, I want him to run. I want him to take advantage of that when he sees it.
One criticism then is when he ran for one of those runs when he was and the game was well in hand. It wasn't like there was any threat, but he was going to the end zone and was into the south end, and he was trying for too much. And he looks a little awkward when he's running, and he's facing contact, and he stretched the ball out and easily could have lost the ball. He needs to just tuck it and get what he can get. I don't know if this is because he played in a small high school or what, but he needs to remember always the guys he's going up against are big boys.
He looked like that last week when he tried to get that first down.
Yeah.
And he just ran to the line and kind of stuck his hands up and tried to go over. And obviously
it was not going to happen.
And he did the same thing today with that run we're talking about. He was running towards the end zone, and he was like a yard and a half out.
Right.
And the defender hit him, and he's trying to reach his arms over the helmet of the defender, even though he's a yard and a half out.
It almost
and he
was
could lose the ball very easily.
I could see and feel him hearing Riley, probably having already told him about that, thinking, oh my God, he's going to see me do this. I got to pull that ball back. And he pulls it back in time for something bad not to happen. But I'm sure they'll be all over him about that.
Yeah, he's not a quarterback he's not a quarterback who can take a lot of contact. And we've seen someone made a good point. I was listening to something over the week, and someone made a good point. You can see where he's a little tentative in the way that he goes about scrambling or rolling out or even approaching a defender or trying to get away from a defender. It looks a little bit.
He needs to figure out
it looks
his
really
escapes.
unathletic in a lot of.
We nitpick the guy. I mean, he's only played like 17 games in his career, so. I mean,
he
he's
just
probably
needs
not
to know
going to be
who
here
he
after
is.
this year, so experience-wise, he's still going to get.
And there's different
10 or 12
quarterbacks.
more games,
He just needs to know his escape routes and his escape methods. So when he's in a scramble or whatever, he needs to know he's a guy that needs to head for the sidelines in a different way. He needs to learn his slide. That's something that a very athletic, very strong guy, although he's small, and Kyler Murray, and as fast as he is, he was very smart and very good about sliding. He was like the best slider I've ever seen.
In the history of college football, I think he's the best slider I've ever seen.
I think that's actually legitimately true. Yes. Well, any other comments on Rattler and quarterback play? Anything else there?
We could talk about Caleb Williams for a minute.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Do it, man.
I thought he looked good.
Brings a smile to my face.
59-yard run was...
That was awesome.
I mean, he got caught by a safety. I mean,
safeties are fast.
He's a bigger guy, so he's not going to be as fast as a safety.
Right.
But when he took off running, all I saw was open space, and I thought, but the safety took the right angle and got him.
How tall is Williams?
Let's see.
I'm going to say 6'5".
6'1", 218 is what he's listed as.
Yeah, no, he's actually taller than I even think he looks. But I think it's because he's solid.
I would have guessed 6'2" or 3, but 6'1", 218 is what he's listed as.
He's a solid guy.
6'1" sounds short, but
he's got a massive arm.
He's a big
dude. Yeah. No, he's a big dude. He's very strong.
No, he looked. I wish good. It was unfortunate, and we've talked about it. It was unfortunate that he was not surrounded by any first teamers.
We were really disappointed. I don't know if you noticed or talked about it. We were talking immediately. He's out there on an island with all the second
team receivers. He had
Very
one starting offensive lineman out of the 5.
Yeah,
and that's even then that even is
it was like the right yard.
Still did really well.
Yeah, you do really well, but you're not out there with a lineman who's found any sort of rhythm.
Now I don't know, and maybe I don't even know if they would know who Western Carolina had in to know that we got to play our second team because they're playing their second team.
Right.
But it is frustrating from the standpoint of you want a guy to give his best chance to get good experience, and you need it with the starters. It is just tough. There was at least one drop. There probably are missed blocks and missed routes that we don't see immediately. That
what
are
was
just
he
going to
doing
happen
on
with
the?
second
What was he
teamers.
doing on the parallel scramble?
That was cute. That was funny. It's like
we laughed pretty hard at that one. Caleb, if you're listening, take a turn upfield, buddy.
He's a strong guy. He ran 40 yards sideways and never once tried to point upfield until he fell on his butt. He fell like the Ohio State band leader did today running out of the tunnel, which was hilarious.
That's good stuff.
Be a great gift to use.
Oh, absolutely. That's it. Every time they screw up, you send them that.
We had one where the schooner turns
pronounced
over
GIF,
that
but
they kill us on.
That's right.
But this one for the Ohio State band leader is going to have to be.
Well, we're going to skip referee review because who cares?
Not a lot.
But I'm going to exchange that with one, at least a special one, which is venue review, and how frustrated I am at our rinky-dink poor venue. It is not SEC worthy. It is a joke. It is awful.
It's a laughing stock.
What aspects?
Here they come.
Yeah, wait for it.
And it's not just this game. This is just one of many experiences that are the same like this. The lights that weren't on, of the 4 light stations, one of the light stations we only had, four
three.
However,
Three bulbs.
3 bulbs working out of, what is it?
35, 40?
Oh, easy. I would say 60 or something.
60
It's a
or
lot. Pull up the picture and count. Regardless, that is basically a fourth of your lighting is not working. I sent out the joke text that we might have to forfeit, but at some point, you've got to have that stuff working, or we might have to call the game early or something. So that's just a microcosm of everything about that stadium that was rinky-dink to me. Last week we were in the suites or the club level for just a while, half of a game, full game for you. And you're taken care of in the club. The club is amazing. Free drinks, free food. It was very, very, very well done. Go back this week to my seats in the upper deck, which are donor seats, where we pay a very hefty amount to get these seats. And at the beginning of the game, before the game has even started, we're standing outside for the one of 2 concession stands that services the entire upper deck. And the
84 lights.
Crew of volunteers that obviously are just a local high school group who gets to do that for a fundraiser are way over their heads about it. They've already run out of hot dogs, and they don't have lids for the drinks.
This is before the game.
This is before the game's even started.
Before kickoff.
Oh, and we're waiting in that line extra long because in their refusal to take cash, and you have to use a credit card, which is very difficult to send your kid. I had to send my kid with my credit card twice when they wanted to go to the concession stand, which they accepted, obviously, without looking at it. So I guess I don't have to pay those charges since that's a fraudulent use. But the credit card machine shut down, froze up. And so the entire line was just stalled there, waiting in the heat. The seats were in the chair backs. The seat numbers are peeling off. Yep. A guy who used to set up, and just to give you some indication, this is not something that just happened this game. This is an ongoing problem. The guy that used to sit behind me and to the right, and his family, he ended up finally leaving after 3 years of sitting in those seats, and the bolts were coming out and they were broken, and he never could get them within any of those seasons and season after season to come fix his seat, and he's paying $750 per seat for that seat. The bathrooms were filthy. There were no trash cans in the bathrooms.
No napkins at concessions.
No napkins at concession. It's just an afterthought and a joke.
And
I'm
again,
embarrassed.
for everyone, for anyone who thinks we're bitching to bitch, we are not bitching to bitch. This is a persistent problem, and it's persistent enough to call out on something like a public podcast. It's unbelievable the accommodations that are lacking within a Division I, not even a Division I, a highly touted
one of the top programs in the country.
A highly touted Division I program.
They call it the Palace on the Prairie, and
you
it's
treat
more of a
us like we are the peasants of the peasants.
Mm-hmm.
So don't call it a palace, friends. It's absolutely ridiculous. And
the
Lucas,
security,
I'm not sure if you've
the
actually
security process to get
experienced
into
anything
the
like it,
game is a joke.
No.
It is absurdly long. It has always been absurdly over the top, and yet it is about as it is a joke in terms of safety. It's not even security theater. At least the TSA in their security theater gives the presumption occasionally that it's actually doing something. This is a joke. I could sneak anything into that stadium I wanted to sneak
You know why?
into.
Because it's another fundraising thing where they put high school and college kids out there. From
And they don't.
athletic
What they're
programs.
looking for, they don't want you to sneak food in.
I mean, they did stop a bomb from getting in 10 years ago.
They turned the guy away
twice,
not because of his bomb, because of some other peculiarity. And yes, and
let
that's,
it be
that's
known.
the problem.
Let it be known. He still ignited the bomb.
Yeah.
The bomb still went off.
He accidentally blew himself up sitting on a park bench.
Yeah, but
They didn't confiscate the bomb.
and
There
yet
was
what we
nothing-
still do, which is so typical of everything we do, so ironic this is, or coincidental that this is 9/11 when we're talking about this, we overreact to everything forever because we have one incident, and then now we're going to build our entire security theater around the idea that people are trying desperately to sneak into the stadium with bombs, or of course, if we want to continue with the analogy with the TSA, we have to take our shoes off here for 20 years because one guy tried to ignite his shoe bomb on fire, which again also got past the TSA, and it was passengers in the plane that stopped him. But these are just many things. They've gone on for years. It is clear they don't have a strong desire to be a first-class institution or a first-class venue.
For as much as they want to present them caring about it, they do not care about it.
And as much as they want their money, and as much as they've got an entitled attitude in my mind of that we should just be happy with what they provide. One other thing that I will say, and this is just my own personal opinion, but we did notice that they replaced the very worn out banners that were on both sides of the press box. I don't know if you noticed, but they had the wood grain on them. So they're the wood grain
sure you love that
design, which is a
OU
joke.
on one side, Jordan logo on the other side.
Yeah, and in the field of red was in the wood grain, which to me continues to be something that's completely out of touch in terms of branding.
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Bring
It's
the wood,
stupid.
fellas.
It's awful. It's awful.
You guys are pessimists to the wood.
We are pessimists to the wood. It's stupid.
I'm an optimist for the wood.
I swear to God, it's
what has
something-
happened to our program
somebody
since we
screwed
brought
up.
the proverbial wood?
Every time we bring the wood, we get our asses
We've
beat.
won lots of Big 12 championships.
We've
Never
won
with the
two
wood. Never with the wood.
We've
Yeah,
won
that's
two
right.
with the wood.
And almost lost them. And they were both tighter than they needed to be. No, seriously, the problem I have with the wood is I think it obviously was some dipshit who came up with a mistake and got into the presentation and something had bled through. And he panicked and said, "No, that's intentional. It's wood grain, and we're bringing the wood." And
Remember those rickety ass wagons that they brought across the prairie? Yeah, we want to memorialize that.
Yeah.
Bring that wood, baby.
Anyway, I don't mean to distract us with the wood thing, but
Joe Castiglione,
to me,
we're calling your ass out.
The venue
That's all I'm saying.
is problematic.
I love Joe C.
They need. I
love
love
Joe
Joe
C.
C. too,
too.
and he does a
Think he's
great
great.
job at some things. Venue
Fix some
management's
other
not
stuff.
one of them. And you look at many of our venues, from the Lloyd Noble across to so many of the smaller sports.
Fan
and
experience
I think we
is
do,
not what
the
they
fan
care about.
experience is not what they care about.
Between
In fact,
tailgating on Lindsay and everything else,
Yeah.
and everything they've
that's
excluded
a
us from,
great point of the
is
tailgating.
they do
mistakes
not.
they make.
All they care about is bringing people in, get them in the seats. They don't care about the experience that they have.
I think they have a
into it.
short-sighted, entitled view. I think that they believe in a very zero-sum game, that if someone's tailgating, they're not going to come into your venue and spend money, and that's not the way it works. They should
opposite
expect and
is
hope
the
that
opposite.
150,000 people come to campus in Norman for a game day, knowing only 85,000 are coming into the stadium. I think they think it should be 85,000 and everyone comes in, and that's just not realistic. They need to look and see the fact that people that do tailgate, still tailgate today, with all of the obstacles they put in their place, what do? They recreate their living rooms out there on the lawn,
Yep.
which should tell them a lot about what people want and what the substitution is. And I would guess it would be interesting to dig into. It's public information, so they should release it. even though they pretend they're a private organization. I'd like to know how many season tickets they sold this year. I bet it's a good 5,000 to 10,000 less than they sold in the prior year, and that was an ongoing trend accelerated by COVID. I would expect that will continue until they start making it as nice and as fun for people in terms of fan experience as what they can experience when they're home in their own living room.
Well, and you look at the corner of Boyd and Asp as an example. I mean, those people. So you have two massive tailgates set up right there, two massive tents, both with huge parties that attend both. And as I'm walking to the game, I see those parties getting less and less because those crowds are heading towards the stadium. You're not losing fans by promoting tailgating or by allowing, and not even promoting, you're by allowing tailgating at this point. So, no, I consider myself extremely lucky to have a place near campus, near the stadium where I can go, because it would be extremely difficult for me to get enough energy and enough time to find myself coming down to campus with children or with whatever other responsibilities I have on a game day because of the lack of amenities that I have as a fan. And it's not being dramatic in my opinion whatsoever.
That's the end of my tirade, but
Lucas, as the pessimist, what do you think?
As a realist, I honestly I'm not a concession purchaser.
Yeah.
So I don't stand in lines for food or drink. I do all that before I show up to the stadium. I walk up the steps to the top row of section 16 and row 72.
And you're good.
And I sit in my seat. And then when the game's over, I come down from my seat. Last week, I did go down at halftime. There was no halftime show, which I'm not a big fan. I mean,
we don't start on the band.
The band can
don't
get out
start
there.
On the band.
It's all good.
We'll get sacrificed if we talk about the band.
Doesn't bother me a bit. Go do the band thing. But I went down last week because it was so hot, and I bought some waters for me and my other two attendees. But generally, I've gone 5 years at a time without going down for 1 second during a game, whether it's halftime or in between quarters or anything. When we used to play Texas A&M on a regular basis, I would purposely go down at halftime because I can't stand their stupid band with all their fake military crap.
Yep.
So
most overrated band in the land.
Yes, just as a show of disgust, I would go down at halftime only when A&M played in Norman.
Yeah.
But other than that,
so you're not big on the amenities.
I use the restrooms. They've still got the troughs. I mean,
what about the game?
To me, that's
it's
disgusting.
Been there. I've been
awful.
going to OU games since I think my first one was 1986.
And that's what they had then.
And the troughs were there. And it's 2021, and the troughs are still there.
I think that's a great point. I think that's a great reason to be disappointed. That is something that is just it is 20 years ago that was out of touch, and that shouldn't. It's inappropriate.
And
it's
the south end zone, I had my tickets removed last year due to COVID to the southeast corner. Those facilities are nicer, obviously, because they're newer. The concession stands, there's way more room to walk around in that south end zone than there is in my current north end zone seats. But again, I don't use the concession stand. They'd have mobile ordering, I guess, now, but good luck getting a phone signal to work, for one thing.
Right.
The Wi-Fi that OU provides is a joke because it never works. You can't really be on your phone hardly during the game, like in a TV timeout if you want to check some other scores. Because
which you do need to check, because the ones that come on the ribbon board are dated
incorrect.
or just flat out incorrect.
Yes. Even Chris Plank was saying, the score of this game is this, and he was a touchdown off that happened 5 minutes before that, which he's reading off a script, but that was written still. So amenities, I mean.
So what do you guys think? You guys think going into whenever it happens, whether it be next year, the year after, or even as late as 2025, do you think that's something that we address as a university to say we are going into this upper echelon of fan experience? Because in my opinion,
meaning the SEC.
Yeah, in the SEC, yeah.
No chance.
Their
next project is the press box. Yeah. And then there was talk of doing a walkway.
Which press box you gotta hope that improves that side of the stadium.
Yeah, to me that's where they're out of touch. I actually have a conspiracy theory about it. I think they are willfully letting things be neglected because they, again, in their zero-sum thinking minds, believe that if they deprive us enough of things, that somehow that will instigate us to be, or at least encourage us enough to give money for whatever the grandiose plans are.
Right.
And I think it needs to be more give and take in terms of here's where we want to go and here's what we want to develop. And they have to scale their ideas to be something that's appropriate. I also know that they're dealing with a lot of different pulls and demands. One of them, or some of them, are a little bit political. But if you look at it from a realistic point of view, a pragmatic point of view, a business point of view, which is what it should be looked at from, you should not in any way, as they are somewhat substitutes, in any way encourage or promote, let's say, the softball stadium over improvements to the football stadium. Right. If you do that, and I know they want a new softball facility, you are putting not just the cart in front of the horse, you're putting make-believe in front of the horse. Yeah. The football horse drives everything. If you want a successful athletic department, softball and otherwise, you need to make sure football is taken care of first and foremost.
Sometimes they have specific donations to
Absolutely.
softball. Like this week they had $2 million worth of donors went to the tennis center and the gymnastics center, I believe, just this week.
Right.
What if you're donating $2 million, you should be able to decide where that money goes.
No, I'm not saying that. I know that's obviously the case. What I'm saying is when you are out there making your efforts to raise donations, it's your choice what you promote and how you prioritize. And I don't think they're prioritizing
the
things
people that are
properly.
donating that money are already in the suites, so they're not seeing what the restrooms look like. They're not seeing what the concessions look like.
Which is more incumbent on
they're-
OU
they're
to
exactly.
encourage things the right way.
Present that. To be in those donors meetings and present to them, hey,
Or look
we
at
appreciate this donor. We appreciate this donation that you made last week, however, or last year or whenever. However, here's where we're lacking, or here's where we think we can be better.
Yeah.
Look, the poor people have nicer restrooms with no troughs, and those people that are donating are be like, I don't give a crap about
Well,
those people.
that isn't, but it's not that direct, and it is a matter of how you spend your funds. So if you just look at the chairback seats that we set in, which are, I believe that's right, $750 per seat donation, rows 1 through 10 for sections. What would it be? 103, 104, 105, 106, 107.
Yes. That's
so 4 or 5 sections, 25 seats. 30 seats times 10 rows times 5 sections. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of money. They could start devoting that to improvements to that area inside the. And it takes more long-term vision that I wish they would have. I know that. There's a desire to have as many people as possible at the game, but that may be an appropriate goal. 85,000 may be an unrealistic number in a city that is pushing 1.5 million, a greater metro area. That's a lot of people. You may want to scale that back and have it be a nicer amenity for 75,000 people and have more space for folks, and also better club-like atmospheres. I just think there's a lot of thinking they could be doing there and a lot of improvements, but at the very least, the basics should be taken care of, or they run the risk of getting a rude wake-up call, and that is we saw a lot of empty seats today, even though it was a so-called sellout, and that's probably going to happen and continue for a long time.
I went to Tennessee for that game in 2015, and that was the worst restroom situation I've ever been in any stadium I've ever been.
You ever been to the Cotton Bowl?
I've been to 19 Major League Baseball stadiums. I've been to
Tennessee was a joke.
UCLA, Tennessee, Ohio State. I've been to 6 Big 12 away games. And the Tennessee situation, that was 105,000 people.
Yeah. I don't think that's the point, though.
Well, maybe we should be better than that.
You could maybe get 25 people in the restroom.
Yeah, but I don't think that's...
And that was for a whole corner.
It was awful. It was
horrible.
No, it was terrible. I think and I don't think I don't think the key message here is I need better bathrooms to go to when I'm there. I think it's just an overall experience.
That would be nice, though.
You add Tennessee up. We were there. I was at Tennessee as well. You add the tailgate experience up to the stadium, the atmosphere that you were allowed to have outside of the stadium going
fantastic.
in, amazing atmosphere. And I don't necessarily specifically remember like concession amenities or anything like that within the stadium. I'm not sure they were much better than what I have currently, but everything leading up to my experience inside, made me going to that game probably worth it. And that's probably why you see them selling out crowds for stuff like Pittsburgh or stuff like that, like we saw today.
Yeah.
And I think that, a lot can be said. It's, a lot of this is just like, oh, we're raising hell about just pointless stuff because we don't have anything else. It's not that, in my opinion. I think there's a lot to be said because I think you have really two pretty good points of view here. You have a couple of guys who, at this point, I'm pretty honed in on. I was pissed off at waiting in line for more than 5 minutes today. I don't like doing that. If I'm going to go grab a beer or grab a hot dog,
well, at least have some TVs that I can look at that actually pointed at me standing in line, not pointing to where no one stands.
Yeah, or if I have kids I need to get stuff for, etc. And you have someone who says, all I really experience is the troughs in the bathroom because I don't really go down for any sort of amenities. However, you still have that kind of discomfort or inconvenience type of mindset.
Well, to me, that sounds just disgusting. That's absolutely awful.
It is, and like you said, it's
and the bathrooms on the upper deck are not troughs, but they're awful.
1984.
They're awful.
It's 1984.
And if you just look at the concessions down at the newer part of the east side at the bottom and the base, they are a big step up from what we suffer with in the upper deck.
I just don't know how Josie or anyone from an executive position could walk through in the middle of the second quarter, what we saw today, and walk through and say, man, this is how I want things to be working. This is how it should be. Right. There's no way. You're wrapping a line over 350 feet
it was ridiculous.
For one concession stand. That's ridiculous. It's
awful.
Absolutely unacceptable.
Since COVID, they also don't have any walking around people with ice chests.
That's right. That's right. That's a good
whatever
point.
That's called. I don't.
Yeah, the guys. There's a name for that. Yeah,
right. The
that walk
concession
around
people
selling,
that walk up and down the stairs
selling drinks.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I completely forgot those
people existed.
It's a good point. They think they offer
staffing.
this. Well, they think they offer the scan the QR code and you're going to order something, but it just doesn't work. It's ridiculous.
And so none of the concession stands take cash anymore.
Which is
that may
very
be
frustrating.
why they're not doing the people going up and down the
Maybe.
stairs.
I don't know what it is that they're allergic to cash. I don't know what happened. I don't know if that somehow causes COVID. It's utterly ridiculous. I think they're using it as an excuse.
It's a COVID capsule.
Let's get back on track for the post game.
All right. Well,
no, that was good.
That was our contentious views. That was our contentious views.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty good.
Good rant. Good rant. Good rant. Love you guys.
So, pick review. How did we do on the picks? Who were the realists? So, let me pull those up and see how those went. I know that the most optimistic scorer, Elise, she was the big winner on the score, having picked it at 72 points. We scored 76. But among us, I had 66 points. Connor had 55, and Lucas had 59. So Connor was the pessimist. I was the optimist. I would be the winner there.
It was.
Lucas was the optimist on yards. He had the highest yardage, and we hit that.
601.
Looking at time, thinking about optimism, pessimism, Lucas was the best on time. Kind of an odd thing. He was most pessimistic, if you will, being that he had the low time of 11:57, even though that's a pretty high time.
To what, about 10:35 or somewhere around there?
10:28.
10:28.
And then on longest play, not a real long play, like I was mentioning. We typically have had a lot longer plays in past years, and we've taken a step back in that. But we're having very big production on our offense. So overall, we were actually pretty realistic across the board. I wouldn't say there's a lot of pessimism or optimism either way there. It wasn't like somebody rolled out a 35-point prediction against Western Carolina. That would be pretty pessimistic. I don't know how I guess you could be overly optimistic and say 100, but we probably could have scored 100 if we wanted to tonight.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For what it's worth.
Absolutely.
Poll predictions, where will we be after this week? Ohio State's ahead of us in all but name. They got beat by Oregon, so they're going to drop.
I think we move up to 3.
Back up to 3. We're at 4 now in the AP poll. We're at 5 in the coaches, is that right?
Was that, yeah.
I think
so. I'll go AP based. I'll say we move up to number 3.
I agree.
I think, given that, I think Oregon moves up significantly in the polls this week.
Yeah, where are they gonna be? Where do you think we're gonna be, Lucas?
Where did they start at this week?
12.
Well, where do you think we're gonna be?
I think we'll be at 3.
Where do you? So they were 12. Oregon was 12. Ohio State obviously was 3. Does Oregon?
5.
Oregon has to jump.
I think
Ohio
Oregon
State.
will be 5.
Oregon at 5, I think that's safe. How low does Ohio State go?
8.
A disappointing game against Minnesota that they won, and then a pretty difficult showing against look at that interception for a touchdown by Stanford. Love it. Couldn't happen to a better
Iowa's got to move
team.
up too, though.
So Iowa's got to move up. Iowa State will move down. I think that Ohio State has to be hit pretty hard. They had a chance in this game, but they got beat at home. They really got outplayed at home, outclassed. And maybe they're about.
They looked young.
8. They're about an 8.
I think 8.
Probably.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Next game prediction. So our next game is going to be against Nebraska, the 50th anniversary of the game of the century. None of us were alive for it. We're going to be alive for this one.
We were in spirit.
Unfortunately, only one team is living up to what those two teams were in 1971, which is just absolutely phenomenal. If you go back and look at the production they had offensively, especially their defenses were tremendous. The number 1 and the number 2 offenses, just unbelievable in 1971 what OU and Nebraska were. I will say that OU will completely come out focused and will manhandle Nebraska. I'll make a prediction of OU 42, Nebraska 17.
That's pretty close to where I'm at. I don't think it's much of a. I'm hoping this game's over by halftime when we get there next week, and I'm excited. And that means a very fun, happy-go-lucky second half. I'm all for it. I'm at about 48 to 17. I'm throwing a couple Burkage field goals in there. Lincoln's liking him this year, so I'll take a couple of those.
I'll go 41-14. Same situation, a couple field goals because they may stop us inside the 30, 35, and Burgess has shown that anything pretty much under 60, he's going for.
Man, how about
the kick
that
today,
kid,
56 yards into a little bit of a wind.
Would have been good from 70.
And it landed in the front row of the handicap section of the south end zone. So it was a good 8 yards past the goalpost.
Easy.
I mean, it would have been good from 63 to 64.
We were talking about that before the
phenomenal.
cast. I mean, that kid it's been 2 games. He has 4 kicks over 50 yards.
Which we're guessing nobody in OU history has done that.
I don't think ever.
Yeah,
like in their whole career, like a Lasher, none of them.
I don't remember.
4 years.
I remember if an OU kicker thought they'd kick a field goal from outside of 50, it was laughable at best.
Well, I think during the Stoops era, Stoops wasn't having that.
No,
he trusted his defense enough to just try to pin him deep. Yeah. So
this actually brings up something that was interesting that was on the Sooner Scoop podcast this week, and they were talking about. Referencing a kicker missing in a big game in the past, and it is funny. Kickers were not very good in the past.
No.
So there's 2 things. One is So here's some things that in a lot of times over time things get easier. Like there is grade inflation, there is testing inflation. Standardized tests today are easier. They've gotten easier progressively through the years. Kicking's gone the other way. So kickers used to be able to kick off of a tee.
Yep.
And yet they never got the distance that the guys get today on a consistent basis. And definitely not as many guys throughout the entire field of kickers. The goalposts used to be much wider than they are today. And they narrowed that back in the 90s. You have a lot of games. As you read Switzer's book, you'll read about teams missing field goals against us, especially Nebraska in those Sooner Magic moments. But just what should be chip shot field goals, and they're missing them repeatedly. And on the podcast today, on the Sooner Scoop recently, they were mentioning how it was going to be just a miracle if I can't remember who it was. It might have been Colorado. I don't know. Was trying for a field goal, and it was like. Those were just going to be miracle finishes for a 38-yard field goal. A 38-yard field goal, you just think you're toast if the opponent's kicking that. So it's really funny that today we're kicking longer, we're kicking more accurately.
Yeah, they were talking about the Nebraska-Florida State National Championship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I remember when Colorado beat us up in Colorado, it used to be a really big deal that you were up in the altitude at Boulder and the ball could fly farther. And remember we got beat in 1989 off of a kick that went... just barely. It actually hit the crossbar and bounced across to beat us, which was just heartbreaking. But it was one of those where they thought the altitude helped and everything. And I have to go back and look. I bet that kick wasn't that far. I bet it wasn't a 56 or 59 yarder.
Well,
yeah.
in the NFL's, they brought back their extra points considerably.
Yeah.
And those guys missed them.
Yeah.
Miss them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
they're 38 yardage now?
Yeah.
Consistent.
Yeah.
They kick from the 20 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're still highly accurate. But no,
Right.
they.
But it is crazy. I mean,
crazy.
I have my
Burkett missed a
criticism.
31-yard last
Well,
week.
that's the other thing to
Chris made
remember
three
is
outside of
they
50.
aren't automatic,
Right.
and that's
They are
something.
human.
That's one thing that Advanced NFL Stats, which I miss Brian Burke and his work there. He went to work for ESPN, and then he doesn't really do any. As far as I know, he's not doing that anywhere. But one of the points he always made was just how important incremental yardage is for field goal percentage. And it mattered a lot.
Yeah.
And just 5 extra yards was an enormous difference in probability of making it.
Wow.
And one of the things he always liked to point out was this old adage that if you are on third down, don't run a play, just try to kick the field goal then, because what if it's a bad snap? And the truth is the bad snaps happen about 1 in every 10,000 snaps. And what does happen, though, is you give up yardage. And but you could be getting on that third down, which statistically does hit your field goal quite a bit. So it's pretty interesting. Heard that come up just today when someone was or yesterday, I think they were gonna kick a field goal. But anyway, optimistic, pessimistic. Will you be a playoff team, Lucas?
I've changed a little bit on that because the way college football has gone in the last 2 weeks with the teams that
12 hours.
Yeah, I mean. It looks like a lot more parity when you've got FCS schools like Jacksonville State beating a Florida State, which I know they're not a top 25 team, but that's a huge name program.
Well, with Toledo should have beat Notre Dame today.
Beat Notre Dame.
And you can't really, Oregon and Ohio State.
I mean, even Cincinnati struggled with Murray State. It was like a 7-7 game or something in the first half. I mean,
they're sixth.
There was a lot of games.
OSU struggling with Tulsa.
Colorado and A&M. I mean, that went down.
Well,
what's
USC ranked? They're 16, 17.
USC's 14.
They're getting
losing to Stanford.
pounded by Stanford.
Stanford
Who got
lost to
pounded by
Kansas
Kansas State, who almost lost tonight to
Southern Illinois.
The
How
Salukis.
did Texas Tech
Southern
turn out
Kansas.
today?
They won about.
Okay.
Yeah, they
like
won
20
narrowly
or
or
something.
something.
So the parity in college football between the 5th team all the way through the 100th team.
It was a big shake.
Seems
at
to
the
be
very least,
the-
at the top is the most concerning I have. I don't know about
I
think we might
it
be
feels more
surprised
like
how-
we could be a playoff team with
how
that. And the
little
Big 12
parity there
stinks.
is. But yeah,
From
they
everything
do
I
stink.
saw today,
Yeah, they do
the
stink.
Big 12 stinks, and so that makes me think that our road would be a little bit easier than as of last week. I thought Iowa State was going to be better than they are. I thought Kansas State would give us trouble just because they normally have, but it looks like they lost their quarterback possibly.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State is horrific.
Yeah,
they barely won their game against Tulsa. They're lucky they won the game against Tulsa.
We got to get to
Texas loses to not a very good Arkansas team.
Loses badly.
Texas Tech almost loses to a FCS school.
Big 12 looked bad.
It looks like the Big 12.
Big 12 looked bad
TCU
today.
almost lost to Cal.
They won by 2 points.
And that was a home game.
So I think if you're looking at parity, you may look at some teams that are just surprising and better than, and one of them might be a lot of these Pac-12 teams, even though Cal almost beating TCU is a joke, because Cal's a joke. But a lot of these teams in the Pac-12 might be better than you think, although I don't know. Stanford's not very good. They got beat by K-State. But Oregon's good. I guess Washington's getting beat. Let me completely retract all of that as I think through. Arizona State's probably pretty good. USC's disappointing right now. Oregon looked very good today. Washington's not looking great against Michigan. So I don't know. I don't know where the talent is. I don't know if the Big Ten might have some teams that are better in that upper average or group, above average group. I don't know. Maybe the ACC is stronger than they've been in the past, but it is something. I think you make a good point, especially about the teams at the top.
And the teams
Alabama's very
good. The teams
good.
that we're playing do not look very good.
No, definitely
Our
not.
schedule for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so specifically to us being a playoff team.
A bunch of the Big 12 teams that, like I said, Iowa State, Texas.
Yes.
Oklahoma State. Those are the three teams I thought could give us up to maybe 2 losses.
It doesn't look that way now.
After what I've seen today, it looks like our path is easier. To
I would
get to
agree.
playoffs.
I think our case for being a playoff team is strengthened. So I'll continue to think We will win the Big 12, and we're going to be a playoff team. We have every reason to expect and believe we should win the Big 12 and be competing for it and be a contending playoff team, be a playoff team, in my opinion, at this point. Connor?
No, I completely agree. I'm on the same page as you guys.
All right.
So, no, I think I have my general just paranoia around the Red River rivalry in Dallas with Texas.
Hey, shit happens.
It does, and it's same thing with Iowa State. I'm glad that game is at home, especially after what I saw today. I'm not nearly as concerned.
Mm-mm.
Iowa State picked up a lot of momentum in the second half of last year, though. They figured out their offense. Matt Campbell seems to get his act together in the second half this season, so we'll see what they look like when they get to conference play. But and then going to Stillwater doesn't seem nearly as daunting as what it has in the past.
It may be that they are a 4 or more loss team at that point.
To be completely honest,
and they may be.
So.
It may be that Gundy is as good as fired.
No, if you don't run the table as Oklahoma right now, I don't know.
The disappointing season at this point.
I think disappointing is putting it kindly, to be honest with you. So that being said, I'm extremely optimistic about our chances, not only just in the playoff, but taking the extra step this year. So, fun stuff.
Good deal. Anything else to cover? Is that it?
Boomer Sooner.
All right, Boomer Sooner,
Beat
everybody.
Nebraska.